Morning, everyone. We are really pleased and honored to have you here on this panel on societal acceptance revisited. We will today and this morning look together with the panel that we have here into the question of societal acceptance, which are the most important aspects there. And it says revisited because we are revisiting, to a certain extent, research that was done by EASA some years ago, which I will introduce in a minute. But before we do that, it's a good time to introduce the panel this morning. Good morning and welcome, first of all, Franziska Biermann, Head of Cluster Policy in City of Hamburg.
Morning.
We have with us on short notice en lieu for Claudia Carra, Francesca Romano from Airport di Milano.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. Ronald Liebsch from Volocopter, Senior Expert Regulations at Volocopter.
Thanks for having me here.
And on the side, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Bobby.
Pleasure to be here.
Good. Great to have you here, Mana CEO, Bobby Healy, Mana CEO of Mana. Good morning. Great to have you. And next in line we have Ralf Schepp. He's CEO of Dronic. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
And last but not least on the side, welcome Yvon Lepiné, Senior Expert Environment and Standards at EASA.
Good morning, everyone.
So, you sense a little bit from the composition of the panel. We want to have this reality check. We want to see with the panel here what is really happening on the ground, what is happening in the cities, and how we stand with societal acceptance as the introduction of ultimately a new type of aviation is starting. In order to follow the discussions and provide your questions, we invite you to connect to Slido with the link that you have there. Give you all a minute to connect and collect your questions through this tool. So unfortunately we have no microphones in the room here. Which is of course in a way a shame, but on the other hand, of course, it allows everyone to provide questions as we go. We connect them later and see them live, and of course, all the participants who are connecting online will be able to join us via the Slido tool. It has also the advantage that you will see already a question for you in that Slido. There's a poll question in there. If you would be willing to go on an eVTOL or an air taxi flight, with or without pilot, or not at all. So that's the question that we would like to ask you, and we'll have a look at the results in a minute. So please make your vote. Give us your honest answer of what would you be willing to get on an air taxi, with or without pilot, or not at all.
I voted.
Voted.
I voted.
Oh, I realized that we should have excluded the panel from voting, but okay. Anyway, the audience is large enough; it will not be biased. Yes. So with that, I think we are set to look a little bit into the past, actually. Just by way of introduction, we have talked a lot about the future. Sometimes it's also instructive to look into the past. Some of you may have seen this. It's an artist's depiction of the future that was created in 1899. Depiction of how Paris would look like in the year 2000. And you see there very busy air. I'm sure the UTM and ATM colleagues would get a bit nervous about this. But you have very busy traffic in the air, air taxi station that was predicted for the year 2000. Well, we have 2023, so we didn't quite make that, I guess. But we are, of course, we're getting very much closer there. So we are discussing now, of course, the future and the present as we see it today. Now, in order to make that happen, you get a sense already from that artist depiction from 1899 that there was already 100 years ago, there was a positive view on the future in that sense. So society in that sense was at that time already looking forward to this kind of innovation. Of course, we all realize that without societal acceptance, the new innovative air mobility concepts, the new operations will not really happen. And in order to understand what society really wants, I guess as a aviation regulator, we cannot claim to be very close to understanding the pulse of things. So in order to answer this question, EASA conducted a survey that was conducted 2 years ago with a similar note in the sense of the overall positive attitude towards innovative air mobility and urban air mobility. So 83% expressed a positive attitude towards UAM, and you see, I think it was 49% were ready to fly on an air taxi. So not a bad starting point if you were able to tap into all of that market. Of course, the concerns were addressed as well. You see here the top 3 concerns. It's about safety, which we discussed a lot yesterday. It's about environment and noise, and it's about security. So these were the results from the studies, and we are now basically revisiting today with actual experience from cities, from operators and OEMs, and from the USSP perspective, as well as the standard setting side. We're revisiting those questions where we stand. It links also very well to the panel 2, which you will have followed yesterday, which had a lot of elements around making sure that societal acceptance is addressed in different ways. So we had the panel that was led by Joachim Lücking, referring in many instances on the notion of societal acceptance. And here, basically, we're doing the deep dive now this morning. So let's get going on the deep dive. Let's start with the city perspective. I think we get the sense that cities should be in the driver's seat. Francisco, you have in Hamburg a lot of activities. You're a leading city as far as UAM projects and test sites and test activities are concerned. And at the same time, of course, you will have your ear to the pulse of the city and to the citizens in that sense. So could you please share with us your experience there and how you see societal acceptance being implemented in the city and where the priorities are for you in this area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could you get to the next slide, I guess? The one with... Yes, thank you. So first of all, the question is, why is it a concern to citizens or to cities? And if you compare it to traditional aviation, so you only see and hear the planes really when they come down to earth, so with takeoff and landing. And here you can see that the traditional aircraft is flying way beyond your heads and your cities, but with drones it will change, and it will be directly above your head, or it will land in your garden or at the pavement, or any kind that is quite next to you. So this, first of all, brings us to the question why it is a concern for cities and citizens. And yes, we have had a lot of experience in Hamburg. We have a lot of projects in Hamburg that deal with different questions, with a legal framework, the setting for the UTM network. We have projects where we try to have medical transport. Of course, we have some surveillance projects, but the main issue in Hamburg is that it is quite hard to fly, because we have most part of the cities are within controlled airspace, because the airport is so near to the city, and we have another airport at the Airbus side at the southern part of Hamburg. So it's really, really hard to fly. You always have to get in touch with the ANSP to get drone flying, and so we don't see a lot of transport issue up to now in Hamburg, and that is the reason why society acceptance, I think, exists. I think there's a positive feeling toward drone flights, but people don't know what is to come. So with respect to capacity, we start with a medical transport that we maybe 3 times a day or so. So I'm quite sure that people will accept that, but I don't know how things will look like if drone traffic is scaling up. So this is something we have to find out, and we like to share with others who also experience that kind of flights, like Bobby does in Ireland.
Great. You have the one more slide on that you wanted to show?
No, it was just backup, so it's all right.
Okay. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that perspective of the city, and I see how that of course drives then the planning forward. So we have the city perspective with us. We are now moving to Francesca. We have an interesting collection here of Franziska and Francescas
Yes.
this morning. So Francesca, you're working at the airport of Milano, and you have a project that is working towards actually integrating in the region of Lombardy in preparation for the Winter Olympics in 26. So from that experience, can you share with us what you're working on in that context, what you're doing to address the societal acceptance questions, and how you are also reaching out to the region in order to integrate with a transport system?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thanks again for inviting me. Yes, we at SEA, Milan Airports, we manage both Milan Linate and Malpensa Airport, and we are studying IAM project and initiatives since 2020. To bring this innovative mode of transport in Italy, starting from Milan, from the Lombardy region, in time for the Winter Olympic Games, as you said, Kai. So our, as you maybe can see, the results from the EASA research on societal acceptance shows that Milan is maybe the city with the highest positive attitude towards the, in general, AIM mobility services, both air taxis and cargo delivery. So we are very happy to, and we are really, really committed and believed in this project also because of this kind of results. Our approach towards the IAM project is really structured, and I can say it is based on maybe 2 main pillars that are a scientific approach. We made a lot of studies, technical studies in particular regarding the demand forecast, because we believe that demand of passengers, in our case, is the very first driver for the implementation of the project in the future. And then the other important pillar is collaboration, because from the very beginning of the project, we involved our stakeholders, our authorities in particular. And in fact, the very first agreement, memorandum of understanding we signed was with ENAC and ENAV, that are our national authorities. ENAC for the civil aviation and ENAV for the air traffic and their navigation control. So we signed this memorandum of understanding, and we meet regularly. We established steering committees, working groups, so the collaboration is real, is effective. Then we also signed an agreement with the municipality of Milan, because of course we think we will build first vertiports inside in the area of Milan. So it's important to involve also the municipality. And also the collaboration with the region is very, very strict. In fact, we in 2022 we developed a master plan of vertiport for the realization of vertiports in Lombardy region, and we formally submitted this document to Lombardy region, because we want, and it is necessary that our plans are consistent with strategic and sustainable plans defined by the region. So collaboration and continuous exchange of experience and point of view is really important. And for the same reason, we submitted this document also to ENAC. So the document is already in line with what ENAC said in the so-called Piano Nazionale degli Aeroporti, which is a national airport plan for the development of aviation and airports in Italy at the national level. And in this document, ENAC considers in a positive way IAM, advanced urban air mobility in general, because it's an innovative and sustainable form of aviation. So we are in line with our national authorities. And this is important to address the concerns that are mainly related to the societal public acceptance. In this phase, we are now approaching the design phase of vertiports, and the main concerns we are facing regard the lack of legal framework from an authorization point of view, and in particular for vertiport realization in urban areas for environmental reason, as you say, noise exposure, and so on. And another concern also related to this topic is the identification of flight corridors above higher populated areas. So for this reason, we think that collaboration with the involved stakeholders is crucial, is key for the success of the initiatives.
And maybe just a follow-up question in terms of the feedback that you get so far in collaboration. Do you get a sense how people are reacting towards this attempt to set up a new transport mode and integrate it with other transport modes?
Yes, we think that if we put on board region and municipalities, then the community, I think this is a kind of signal for the community, for citizens, because if municipality and region are in favor of this new mode of transport, then also citizens can be or can feel, let me say, safe and can maybe accept more easily this new mode of transport. We in the carrying out the demand analysis, demand forecasting, we also conduct surveys to passengers, not only to understand the real mobility habits, but also showing them an hypothetical scenario with IAM services. And we test, there is a positive attitude from men more than by women. Maybe, I don't know, for a cultural maybe gap. I don't know why we test these results. And so we test that there is a good feeling towards. Yeah. All
right, we will expand a little bit more about the question of why there's a gender difference. That's, of course, an interesting aspect. Certainly, something you have to look into. Ronald, you're preparing the actual operations. Everybody's waiting. The airports are preparing for this new mode of transport to come. At Volocopter, you're preparing different sites operations. One, of course, is in Paris in 24. Can you share with us your approach here in preparing for these operations and addressing the societal acceptance issues that we've identified?
Yes, sure. Thanks. So I think from where we are now in the stage of preparing for next year as the first commercial operation for eVTOLs, and choosing Paris as not the partner, but one of the potential partners, we are exactly in that stage to move away from that hypothesis analysis to making it real, bringing that to the public, bringing that to the citizens, and also get in touch with the affected stakeholders to move forward and address all those concerns. And there are, of course, every concern is valid, and using the study EASA has prepared, we also have some initial key facts, and I'm really looking forward to hear what the audience thinks about what they want to sit into an eVTOL or not. But I think from what we are working on, especially with EASA, and here it's everybody understands those vehicles needs to be safe. This is a non-criticized argument. We need to speak about safety as the core priority of those vehicles. But then, of course, and we hear it already, there are already some concerns. What is the sustainability? What is the environmental footprint of these vehicles? And it's not only what comes into play when we enter those operational modes. It's not only that we are affecting the city, it's the entire system, the entire ecosystem needs to work together on bringing those mode of transportation into the public's life. And seeing the visual you had in the beginning, everybody has a different feeling, everybody has a different picture in mind. And we need to, together with the different partners, we need to get away and educate how this picture will look like. It's not only about the vehicle itself, it's also about the footprint into the city. And then what is mainly needed, that it is an added value. It is an added value for the customer. It is an added value for the public. And what you see here, what we are doing, what you see in the video is that we are not only showing videos, but we are testing. We are testing together with the partners to making this kind of mode of transportation a reality, and also test in front before the live operations what works, what we need to improve, and also in those tests how the public perceive it. Because you need to bring those vehicles to the public that they can experience it. If they only need to think about it in hypothesis, they can only compare with existing modes. And usually, if they see propellers, and we have a very specific type of design, if they see those propellers, they're compared with helicopters. Helicopters usually have not that positive image, depending on which area you are. But in Europe, it's a problem to operate helicopters over cities. And that's something what the public needs to learn, and also everyone needs to learn, and we need to learn as well, how is that affecting the public? Noise is critical. I think if I would tell you that noise footprint is 1/3 to a helicopter, everybody will say yes, okay. But we need to test, we need to verify, we need to put that data into the public landscape so that you can really compare, that this is comparable to something which we have not experienced before. And so seeing from those flight tests in Pontoise, we had reporters excusing that they have missed the takeoff because they didn't hear that. So they came afterwards to us, say, sorry, I missed that, but that's the experience we want to see. Of course, we are not there yet. We are not in a live situation. And when we are preparing for Paris next year, this is not an effort Volocopter can do alone. We need to bring all the stakeholders, the airports, the cities, the vertiports together, the regions and the public to develop how does it look like. And looking into the city landscape, we need to explain and draft a picture, what does it mean? I'm not flying on everybody's garden, but we need to speak about infrastructure. And infrastructure is a piece in that entire story, which I think is a little bit underestimated, because that will have an impact which everybody will see on a daily life. And that's something we need to draft, and we need to address the concerns from the beginning, because maybe we see the benefits of that mode of transportation, but the acceptance to have it in front of their daily life is maybe not that given. And that's something we need to address from the beginning. Just some approach sharing what we are doing for getting ready for Paris next year. I think that's also what we hear in Hamburg, that's what we hear in Milano. It's a possible blueprint, but I think it shows what has been seen to work in a very well approach. The network of partners, that there is a community of stakeholders working together on the same goal. And this is the kind of core element, because nobody can do it alone. And then it's important to have an open exchange of what works, what doesn't work, what are the concerns in the public, which we need to address from the beginning. And I think here we are on a good track to prepare for Paris next year. And we are all looking forward to welcome you to fly, depending on the poll.
Depending on, we make it all depending on the poll. The results start coming in. We will share them after we've done that first round, and then have a conversation around the results of the poll. So I think, as you can see, we're creeping towards, moving towards actual operations. There have been the test flights and actual noise measurements in Pontoise. I can say from personal experience that living close to a helicopter pad, I do notice when the helicopter, fortunately it's not too often, but if the helicopter lands next door, I do notice it usually. But okay. So the indications in that direction, as you say, it's all about getting our hands on the data and building the trust based on that. Now you're very close to that launch of operations. Now we move to Bobby, who has actually the experience of operations. We're talking about a couple of thousand flights per day, right? That you're in different
about
different
300 flights a day in one town. Yeah,
across different locations. It's going to be
yeah.
So of course, we're all curious now to your hands-on experience in actual operations, reflecting also, of course, on the societal acceptance data that we've seen. I'm sure you've done a lot before, and we'll, of course, be curious to see what your experience is after you start the operation, how societal acceptance is handled and perceived.
So we have a unique insight here because we're lucky because we're small flying objects, so it's a lot easier to start flying because we're not flying human beings. And I'll explain this video shortly, but it's interesting. So the data that the lady from Milan showed was nearly exactly what we saw when we surveyed people before we started operations. So we started operations nearly 3 years ago, and we're now in our third town. There's 35,000 people in the town. In the last survey we did, now it's nearly a year and a half ago when we did the survey to 10,000 people. And before we started operations, we got about a 70%, bring it on. And we got about a 20%, not sure, don't know, and 10% hard no. And those were a worrying 10% because that's a big number, right? And this happened in all 3 operations we've done so far. Once you actually deploy it, the numbers completely change. And now actually we're 98% positive. Since the last survey we did, it's 98% positive. And that's because the fear of the unknown is a powerful force. And the great thing about just operating, just going and flying is you take a risk, of course, that you're going to annoy some people. But what we did was we engaged with the local Chamber of Commerce. We worked with them and all of the vendors, so all of the little stores, the bookstore, the hardware store, the local fishmonger, literally every small business in the towns we operate in can use our service. That's the first part, so that part of the engagement is important. And the second part is the schools. There's 16 schools in the operational area we're in. And we went to every single one of the schools. I personally went to 8 of the 16 schools, and I gave a STEM talk about the science and about all of that stuff. And we gave the children a free drone delivery voucher. And they went home and they bludgeoned their parents into using drone delivery. So the ambassadors that we had were the children. And children are the most open-minded people, of course, that we have. And they don't care about preconceived notions about... They haven't experienced helicopters, really, right? So they don't have the negative viewpoints. So we engaged first business, then local schools, and then the children were our ambassadors. And we have now 150,000 flights completed, and we have 16 complaints. And Wing drone delivery program, I'm sure everyone knows Wing, they're doing 10 to 20,000 flights a month with 5, 6, 7 complaints a month. So it's not over. There's still a lot to play. And I think there's cultural differences as well around who loves and who doesn't love what we're doing. Because in the end, we're delivering coffee. Coffee is our number one thing. It's nearly 40% of our order is cappuccino. And I said, you might say, that's not a great use of the airspace. That's not saving the world. But I think it is safe in the world because I think it's going to create a massive amount of jobs. It's going to save the lives of delivery drivers that are currently dying on our road delivering burritos. It's CO2, very, very positive saving on CO2 production. So with this video, it's only 60 seconds. I'll explain before you show. Oh, there we go. We're going. These are real delivery flights, 12 miles from Dublin Airport. The red lines are the equivalent road-based journeys that would have been taken if the drones hadn't done it. We operate this town of 35,000 people with 5 aircraft, and each aircraft can do 70 deliveries a day. So we're just comparing the distances and most importantly the CO2. Now, I'm being a little bit unfair to the car here because there, of course, is a CO2 contribution from drones in their manufacture and in the recycling of the batteries. But the science says that we're 8 times more efficient than a small electric car. And in the time it takes one delivery driver, in the time it takes one delivery driver to do a local delivery within 2 miles, we can complete 5 deliveries with the aircraft. These are real. These are 500 customers in one weekend that use the service. 38% of this town of 35,000 people use our service regularly. And it's far more used than any road-based delivery system. So one weekend, equivalent to 15 trees planted. If we scale this up and we bring it to the world, we're going to take a massive amount of cars off the road. And in the end, our noise footprint, we've indirectly proven the case by not having complaints, although we haven't scaled. So we've kind of indirectly proven it, but the fact is that drones of our scale, of our size, make less noise than an electric car at 30 miles an hour. So I think the question scientifically has been answered, but the question around societal acceptance has not been answered.
Great, thanks a lot. We come back a little bit more to the data behind this and how we can get robust information around this assessment. Maybe just one small follow-up question. So 16 complaints. Can you share a little bit what is in the 16
there were 2 things I forgot to say. So the complaints are mostly noise. So about half of them are noise. I don't like the noise. But we get complaints. You flew over my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't want it. It was noisy the whole night. We stopped flying at 9 p.m. So, police helicopter. But there's valid complaints for noise where we fly too many times over the same house and they didn't want it in the first place, so they complain and they have a right to complain. And then the other one is stop filming me. I know you're filming me.
Yeah.
And that goes to the main point I mentioned is when we ask people what are your concerns, your top concerns about drone delivery, because drone delivery is very different than IAM. We're going into people's back gardens. We're coming down to 20 meters. And top concern, privacy. People don't want to be recorded. They don't want cameras. They're worried about that. Second one is noise. The third one, believe it or not, is job loss. That's the third concern. And that is a concern. We hope to put every delivery driver out of a job, because we don't think it's a good job. We think we can create better jobs, displacement jobs. But that is an important concern. And funnily enough, that's the one from females. So the top concern neutrally is privacy. Safety is concern of men, and job creation or job loss concern of women, nearly 80-20. Yep.
All right. I think thanks a lot for sharing that. I think that gives a lot of flavor to what we're actually after. Interestingly, you welcome to the aviation world in the sense of noise, because I think that's what around airports, of course, there's a lot of need for engagement with the local community, also because sometimes complaints come in that are not at all related to aviation, and there's a lot of noises, of course, a lot about the human, and that's why also there are of course specific studies on psychoacoustics impact.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for sharing that. More experience from the operational side, Ralph. You're as an USSP. You have experience in providing actually across different business models, actual operations in different locations, 100 locations I understand across Germany and beyond. So from that experience, looking into also different business models, different manufacturers. What is the USSP perspective there on society acceptance? What can be done around it? How do you engage? What kind of feedback do you get from the companies you're working with?
So, good morning, everybody. Actually, we are facing a lot of concerns. No. Why is that the case? I think Bobby is completely right. So, either you fly and you give people the reason to concern, or you ask them questions where they don't know anything about that. We fly in a lot of different industries, or we help a lot of different industries flying, especially with BV loss operations over the mobile network. That's quite an extensive one. And we've made, for sure, different experiences also with the people underneath. Yeah. So, and that makes totally a difference if you are underway in an area where they are used to air traffic. I remember a case where we were flying over a gas pipeline, and this is regularly done twice a week with a helicopter today. And those people living under this gas pipeline, they were totally happy about seeing a drone flying, because they said, okay, you need some data for the trace. This might be a way which is much more noise friendly. And much less effective than a drone, a helicopter flight. So once you substitute helicopters, and people are used to that helicopter flights, it's probably a big plus on what we are doing. If we are in areas where people are not used to. I remember when we had that use base in Hamburg, we have been at the field outside of Hamburg starting a drone. And we had a guy who was a hunter, yeah, and he was afraid that we stressed his deers or something like that. I mean, at the end, he knew, and we could show that we have all the permissions to do so. I think that's also an important one. We need to give the society tools in order to get convinced about that. Yeah, a nice example is the broadcast remote ID we were always discussing also in the respective gremias of EASA, and which has now come live in the US. This will make up so many cool tools also for owners of small houses who don't want to be seen by you. Yeah, because if you offer a tool like an AR app which basically shows you who's flying there, even if it only shows the mission, yeah, it's the police, it's Bobby, it's a volocopter. It gives much more clarity to the citizens underneath on what is going on there, and for what reasons do I see this plane? Yeah. So participation, also in terms of modern tools, might help a lot here. I'm really sure of. That shouldn't remind us from flying. I think it's really important that we fly often and more often to let people understand what the impact really is. Because I mean, you can ask basically everyone, and maybe male people answer more than that they love drones than women. But the question is, on what kind of experience is that based? Yeah, if you introduce something completely new, people will always be a little bit sacrificed or scared on what's happening there if they don't know. When I was flying my first drone, I was exactly doing that one. I would let the drone fly straight up in the air, and from 30 meters on in the air, I didn't hear that anymore. Yeah, so it's also a question on how high you fly, on what kind of altitude and what kind of impact you do. At the end, also route planning from a USSP will for sure have to relate on circumstances of the city, yeah, and the plannings underneath. So if you run a use space and there is a residential area, you will probably not take the primary route through that residential area. And these kind of discussions we really have to tackle. I'm pretty much of the opinion that you can also only start these kind of discussions once people get involved, actively involved in terms of seeing that, feeling that, have a feeling of the pollution. What I still have a feeling is missing, and we have a lot of these tools already in place. So it's not the case that sustainability and environmental friendliness is a new thing also for the drone industry, because basically every company has to take care of that. The only thing I am missing is we have some kind of a new use case, and this new use case ideally must add nothing to what is there, and this is not a fair way of dealing with it, right? So if you are used to flying helicopters, or if you are used to live next to an airport, people might say, oh, this is an additional traffic which comes on top of it. But if this is much less noise effective or much less pollution effective, you should consider to take another way, and this is what you're aiming for in the delivery part. So I think this kind of multimodality which pops up and which will deal for different kind of use cases also from the air is really a thing you have to consider in flight planning. Also a thing in where you need to get into discussion with the real affected citizens. The tools that are in place are, from my perspective, already manifold. So we had we once built a small airfield in the northern of Frankfurt as a test bed for us, and it turned out there was a helipad on that airfield. So a lot of classical air traffic from the general aviation and helicopters. And there was a wildlife rescue area around, and we had to set up a study by the local authority. We had to set up a study that we will not disturb any breeding birds. Yeah, that took us half a year, a lot of money in order to make that happen. And this is also things. There are already measures implemented which we need to take care of. And which should not be at the end an additional burden for what is already there, because I don't see any kind of difference by flying over a helicopter over these kind of birds, or if you do that with a drone. So there is a lot. There is still a lot to do. I'm really looking forward that we fly and fly and fly in order to make citizens aware of what is possible. And then they probably can decide best if it's the right way or not. Yeah. But we should also not await too much educated guesses up front.
So clear call for also using more tools and digital tools and getting ready for...
Absolutely. Yeah. That's, I think, the way of participation today. Yeah. We are not there yet, unfortunately.
Great, thanks a lot. So we've heard a lot about the experience, a lot of, let's say, indicatively, let's say, positive and encouraging experiences as regards noise and sustainability. So time for a reality check. Yvon.
Yes.
As a senior expert on the environment, your job is to do that reality check. Can you share a little bit what EASA is doing in this space? So.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So yes, from a regulator perspective, we do standards. That's our usual job, and I think what people expect from us. But I would say we try to do more than that. We try also here to be facilitators, as we'll explain a bit further on with this new project, IM Hub. Facilitator for all actors. So we've heard the concerns from our citizens. They say they want sustainability, and by that, they talk about emissions, they talk about noise, wildlife protection. So we try to make sure this happens in practice, and we want to do that, in particular for emissions. We need to do that through the entire value chain. So perhaps I can tell with a few words on noise, which is my key area of expertise. If we have a slide on that, okay. Yes. So yes, we develop special conditions for eVTOL. So what we mean by special conditions, it's we essentially adapt existing standards. Where we're not starting from scratch. There are today standards, noise standards for helicopters, for instance, but they may not be fully applicable to the products we're talking about. So we modify them a little bit so that they make sense for eVTOL products. We also lately published guidelines on how we could go about measuring drone noise, because before we decide if something is too noisy or not, we need to see how we measure its noise, so put some quantitative and objective data out there. So I think in October last year, we published draft guidelines for everyone to consult and provide comments. We received comments, deadline for problems within January. We are now in the process of answering these comments, and we will publish the responses shortly also on our website. So this one, the second, eVTOL is obviously on a higher weight range than the drone noise measurement. Drone noise measurement limits to 600 kilos, so anything below 600 kilograms. We conduct psychoacoustic studies to understand where annoyance kicks in. So we have partnerships with the research institutes in Europe, NLR, DLR, just to name a few, who basically took some of the noise samples of drones and played them to volunteer citizens, and then the citizens, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, were asked to say, okay, this is annoying on a scale of 1 to 10, please give us the level of annoyance you're perceiving from this product. So yeah, this is basically will help us understand what's an acceptable level which our citizens are willing to take for drones. And last but not least, we developed impact assessment capability, so a rotorcraft noise model, which we call NORA. This all started in 2017 with the helicopter noise. You know, there's a requirement in Europe to do a strategic noise mapping for all environmental noise sources. So it's pretty well established, the data and tool for establishing the noise of cars, trains, aircraft is already there. We identified a gap for helicopters, and then we said, okay, since we're going from helicopters to drones is just a logical next step, so we're expanding that capability to do that and to help planners, city planners, to be able to do strategic noise maps for drones as well. So that's on the noise front. And quickly, so on the life cycle emissions, so we are also, we have our policy masters who have recently agreed on a Green Deal and sustainable mobility strategy. So we make sure that the development of the IAM ecosystem is somehow compatible with these strategies. And that means, in particular, we are adapting the European product environmental footprint, PEF methodology, to the case of drones and eVTOLs. So, because as I think just Bobby just mentioned, if you focus just on in-flight emissions, you may find that these things are zero, very clean, but that's also obviously one part of the story. You need to look at the full life cycle assessment. I'm not going to discuss about batteries. Everybody heard the concerns about batteries, how they're made, how they are recycled, from what electricity they're charged. All these kind of things need to be part of the whole footprint. So that's what we are working on. And we're not. We always keep in mind the objective of intermodality and multimodality, and we want to make things comparable. We hear that's also a demand from citizens. They want to know when they go from A to B, what happens if I take this mode of transport or that mode of transport. And for that, so we do partnerships with other European agencies who are so railway agencies, European environment agencies, to ensure that, yes, we reach that compatibility. What's my footprint if I take a car, if I take a train, if I take an air taxi? So that's basically it for now.
Great. You mentioned the air taxi as the last point, and I think we have a nice coincidence here of a question from the audience and the results of our poll. So I think it will be interesting now to see the result of the poll. I'm not sure if we can put it on screen, otherwise I'll give you the results of the poll. Yes, thank you very much. We even have glasses and we have Bobby's mobile. So, result of the poll is that.
Only 3 voters.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. We have 52% of the audience would go on an an air taxi without a pilot on board. 39% will go with a pilot on board, and 9% will not go at all. So that sounds like a very enthusiast and maybe a little bit of male-biased audience. I'm not sure on that point, but I think it's a fascinating result. First of all, I do think it does say a little bit about the bubble that we are all in here, in this room, inevitably, because societal acceptance is all about the society, and we have, of course, here in this room and in the audience, a certain part of society that is, of course, likely to be more enthusiastic. So in that sense, that result is not totally surprising. You will nevertheless like it, I'm sure. But I would like, in the response of the panel, I would like you also to refer to a question that we had in the audience, which was referring to AirMore results, where the finding was that a reference to AirMore, I think we have it there. Yeah. So there's 28% are against IAM usage. So that's basically 9% in our polls and 29%, let's say, in our, not scientifically, but I think the indication gives us an idea. So I think I would like to do a second round now with the panel on this question around how do you see those results, and refer to the societal acceptance elements, and maybe to what we've heard from other partners on the panel. So maybe start with Franziska again. How do you see those results? Do we need a reality check?
Yes, I do think, because those questions are, of course, a bit simplifying. So when there's one figure from your EASA acceptance study where it is asked what are the perceived usefulness of use cases, and the ones ranked first are, of course, the medical ones, and even that they have a number of less than 50%. So this one is really surprising to me, because I would say for medical reasons, even compared to helicopter flying, of course I would prefer a drone that is less noisy than a helicopter, or in the eVTOL that is less noisy. So I guess there's some simplification, as long as we don't try it out, and this is something. You don't know about the complaints or in different areas where you already have a lot of traffic density. So it might be different with a city where you are flying, or the quarter where you are flying. I think it's part of Dublin, as I remember. But if you have a lot of noise, then it might be different to you. Or if you have apartment buildings and not a nice garden in front of your house, it might also be different. So I guess it pretty much depends on where you fly and how your reaction will be. I know in Hamburg it is, with a city located that near to the with the airport located that near to the city. Flight noise is always a topic, and sometimes I have think, oh, it's always the same people complaining about it, and we try to the city, not me myself, but we try to make it better, but they complain nevertheless. So it will be that 10%, as Bobby said. But I think it depends on the situation. But there's one thing I would like to come back with, the sustainability topic. We talked about that before, because I guess it's not always fair to compare drones to a car, because you wouldn't take maybe a car for any kind of use case. You would use a drone now, maybe for getting a coffee. Maybe you had a coffee before when you got out of the underground and put it to get to work, but you wouldn't have ordered it to your house. And I've read about some person in Brisbane where I think a bigger company is doing that deliveries, using it 6 times a day, and he wouldn't use it. He wouldn't use a car getting 6 times a day to a supermarket or to pick up some coffee. So I think the question is relevant. Do you replace existing traffic? Then it is fair. Or do you add to the traffic. And then, of course, what you also have in mind is the whole digital infrastructure behind you need for a car. You wouldn't even need traffic lights because you have rules to go. So you don't have this infrastructure behind, the digital infrastructure. And keep in mind that internet is consuming the energy as much, and this was before Corona, in 2019, I guess, as much as the 6th biggest economy in the world. So it's not the smartphone, it's a handy thing that you charge one day, but it's pretty energy consuming, and we have to keep that in mind with autonomous driving or autonomous flying.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think it's a very fair question to ask in terms of, are we really sustainable here? Are we, by expanding a market, to what extent are we adding to sustainability issues? Maybe since Bobby, you have been addressed in that.
I saw that guy. He's a great customer. So anyone who orders 6 times drone deliveries a day for coffee, that's a very unusual person, right? Because we charge €5 for the delivery. So I don't. 100% you're right, by the way. We're going to create trips that wouldn't have existed before. But along with those trips comes commerce. And those trips are created for small businesses in the community. And I think that's, on balance, a good thing. But I don't disagree with anything that you said. And I'm absolutely not saying we've proven that we're accepted by society, because we're in a town of 35,000 people. They're 12 miles from the airport, so they're already kind of programmed for flights flying over them. But our next town is also in Dublin. It's a big suburb of Dublin with 100,000 people. And there we will do 1,000 flights a day, a little bit more than 1,000 flights a day. That will be interesting. And I don't know what the answer will be, but I'll be back here next year with the data. I suspect we'll have more complaints. But I hope and I think that it will still be accepted. But it's a big test for us. And we'll see. And the fact is, I have the same dreams that you do for my children, my grandchildren, that the cars are gone and that everyone cycles to get their coffee, or they don't drink coffee in the first place, right? But
wait.
Or Ralph drinking wine at 9 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, and vodka.
I'm not sure if this is going the right direction.
But remember my onion example, because we were in a panel before. So I had a big picture of an onion, and we had a customer. We get lots of these types of customers, where some guy orders 1 onion for drone delivery at 6 p.m. Needed an onion. The onion is 30 cents. Delivery was €4.50. He got the onion in 4 minutes, delivered into his back garden. How do we all feel about that, right? Well, the guy selling the onion feels great. The person making the steak that needed an onion feels really good. I feel really good because it's behavioural. It shows the convenience of the service and the fact that it's just normal to order an onion. But as you said correctly, you would cycle on your bike to get the onion or do without the onion. So that's something that society's going to have to say, okay, are we cool with that? And then the big question is, for me personally, is how do we feel about just sitting in our back garden and seeing a drone flying past with an onion? Right, so there's things that we have not answered. And I think the answer is we're going to be fine, because I don't think it's going to be as crazy as people think it is. I think it is largely going to replace stupid things like grocery, convenience store. The fact is, 80% of people get in their car to drive less than 2 miles multiple times a day to bring products home to their house. That's the one that we want to get rid of. That's the big win, I think.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm a bit worried about your intention to get rid of coffee. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
but okay.
Decaffeinate. We're going to decaffeinate the world.
I don't feel good about that, but
If I
yes.
may add something to the discussion, I think in some cases it's not just a matter of replacement or, I don't know, let me say competition between existing modes and the IAM services. I think we have to think to IAM as services integrated into the existing network, ground services, ground network. So I don't think it's a matter of replacement. In some cases, yes, because some trips can be replaced with IAM delivery or both for freight, for passengers. In other cases, I think our aim is to widen the number of services we offer to the communities. So this is another one, sustainable, I think, at least at the local level, because we don't have CO2 emissions, at least at local level. Then we can open the discussion on how to produce the electricity to fuel these vehicles. So.
Yeah, which calls to the full life cycle assessment that we need to do, which we've talked about. And so just have one follow-up question. So you're not concerned about the, I think it was 29% disagreement on eVTOL operations in Milano?
I don't know. As maybe the other colleagues said before, we have to show to people, to community, how these eVTOLs will fly, will work above our head. So for now, they can just imagine, but we are talking about something we don't know. So it's difficult we can have let me say, I don't know, a sensitiveness analysis, I don't know. But
we have for science.
Yeah, we have to test in real scale.
Roland, so how do you feel about the results of the service and how it will scale up?
Before that, maybe also to add on that context about, are we replacing or is that an additional mode of transportation? And I think it's not fair to always combine those different modes of transportation, because it's just a different way how to transport goods or people from A to B. And also with that, but we need to provide clear answers as industry to say, what is it what we add? Of course, then we can discuss to what is it we're going to replace with that. But first, we need to be very transparent in what is the footprint of that, regarding infrastructure, regarding the flights, but also looking into, from a sustainability perspective, into the entire life cycle. So not saying, okay, it's flying over my garden, so that's zero, maybe zero emission on that certain portion, but look into how much CO2 I had been used for the production. What is that on the life cycle? Charging is a very important question, right? So for example, we as Volocopter, we have that battery swap technology where we can really steer with service level agreements that we only use green energy. So that's something what the industry can do to provide transparency in such a portal like the IAM app, to say this is the footprint of that dedicated portion of the truth, but it's not the entire truth, because we need to look into the regions and cities. What does it mean for the infrastructure? What does it mean for a daily perspective? And then we can also compare and say, okay, look, this is replacing, so Bobby's mission is replacing a certain amount of cars, but that's a kind of continuous effort. With regard to the study, I have seen that Bobby has voted for without pilot, and that's something I want to touch on. I want to touch on. So first of all, we have here an educated audience, and still 9% are not convinced. Which, okay, we can work on the discussion. So please reach out to me afterwards what we can do together. But looking into the with or with pilot on board, we have some work to do. Of course, I hope, and that's a question for Bobby, that this doesn't mean you would not enter.
I'm a programmer. So therefore, that's why I don't trust software until it's been tested a lot. Yeah.
So having those answers, I hope this also shows the confidence about that we are on a good way forward with at least that informed group of people. But yes, we need to work, and I'm looking here to also our EASA experts. We need to work on those rules and prepare the framework to fly in the sooner future without a pilot. But we will start with a pilot to exactly start with the system, the authorities, the public, and everyone is known about that mode of transportation with a pilot on board, have a direct contact, have a direct trusted source of quality. Although from a programming perspective, maybe Bobby might disagree, but we have the safety nets who are installed should not be overcome from one day or the other. It's a learning curve. So we will start with a pilot on board because that's what we can certify in the current stage. And that's something we need to also build trust on. It's not only about the society versus the industry. It's about we are learning together how we can make that safe and efficient. And that's also something which we cannot completely reinvent the wheel from one day to another. So starting and the decision to start with a pilot to certify the system, to certify the operation, as we have certified existing aviation. That was an agreed level of starting point, and then we can build up on that.
Great, thanks a lot. I think that was a fascinating discussion. I think, and thanks for triggering that. I think we obviously see that there are questions that still need to be answered. I'm an environmental economist by training, so the rebound effect is what we call that effect, that you get efficiency gains in modes of transport, but the market expands and then the overall resource use increases. So I think it's definitely something to look out for. We have one audience question that refers to the working together of local governance, municipalities. To increase acceptance of IAM is essential to deal with concerns from civilians by local government authorities and municipalities, I would add here. What are plans to promote that and increase that ability? With that, you might recall from yesterday's discussions from the EU Drone Strategy 2.0 has a flagship program which is called the IAM Hub, which is to bring together the stakeholders in the emerging ecosystem, if you like. And here, maybe Yvonne, as it is an EASA-led task, can you share with us a little bit the content of that?
Sure. Do we have a slide for that? Perhaps we can bring on the screen. So yes, IAM Hub is basically we're running a pilot project sponsored by the European Parliament, if I'm correct, running from since started last year and expected to run until 2024, which aims at ensuring that the implementation of IAM in Europe is safe, secure, efficient, and sustainable. So we've got specific objectives dealing with guidance for all stakeholders, making sure they can collaborate, and also facilitating transparency, so making data available to everyone, basically, who needs to access the data. So next slide quickly on if we still have another one. Okay, so yeah, this one is okay. I think it's probably too small for you to read anyway, but it's just to show the IAM ecosystem with all stakeholders involved. So you've got the value chain on the top and the different layers of responsibilities in the vertical axis. So I think the best, for this one, I think we can make hopefully the presentation available to the audience. I don't want to bother you too much with this one. Do we have a more slide on an IAM Hub?
That's it for today.
Okay, so basically, so IAM Hub essentially will be a digital platform that will allow all stakeholders to come together, to collect data, to access to services, to do some statistics. So you will have a publication of key performance indicators, do some collaboration, access for instance, every municipalities, local authorities to access to all the rules that are applicable to them, access to noise data, we mentioned noise data before, also perhaps access geographical information systems, and geodata, and facilities to perform noise maps. So that's essentially a collaborative tool, platform digital, and we are conducting a pilot project running until next year. We have a task force meeting every month, basically looking right now at user stories. So what are the people's needs, basically the actors' needs, what they want, use cases, and basically this will help us set the structure for this platform. What are the specifications and information needed for it? I'm happy to take question offline. I know we're running short of time, so.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good moment there, since we've touched upon this collaboration aspect, and I think many of you have mentioned the need for collaboration. So maybe Rolf, if you want to share a little bit your view on what you think this kind of platform can do, and generally what sort of actions we need to take to bring people together to get things really flying and off the ground with societal acceptance in view.
Yeah, and that even on a European level, I guess this is the most important thing. So transparency is a very big target of this exercise. This hopefully comes with digital tools at the end, because I really strongly believe that we will raise society acceptance when we have a common framework across Europe, which is not so different between each and every member state. For that reason, and while the national implementations of the drone drone law, the European one, get into force now in the different countries, or need to be implemented in different countries, it's even more necessary that we all have a transparent view on what is going on in which kind of member state. Also in order to avoid different market kind of deviations, which might happen. Where it's also quite helpful is to have the value chain in place, because, I mean, from next year's on, companies have to consider their environmentally, sustainably, and compliance footprint in reportings in Europe. So we all have to think about our value chain, what we have in that value chain. If this all goes right, this is quite a harsh thing within the drone industry, because there are so many components you need to take care of at the end. And also the global production of these kind of things and the local implementation, this will face some challenges, I think, to all of us in the coming years. But this is what I mean. I mean, these kind of measures are also already installed. We need to make use of them, because that at the end, everyone will be convinced that this works. And I want to add one last thing to that Slido result, and also the result of the study. If it might be 23% or 10% or whatsoever who do not want to fly, I'm not so sure if we really must care about that. To be honest, if you ask people today, do you want a new motorway? Yeah. Ask them. The result will be totally different. If you ask them, I want a fast railway station next to me, they will tell you a totally different story. Yeah. So it's with every existing infrastructure as of today, it's much worse. People don't like more traffic around them anymore. So if you get results like these ones, this might also be the reason that they are not educated as well at the moment. Or don't have the experiences, but that's a really good result. That's a really good result. We don't ask BMW if it's worse to set the next car even bigger and bigger. So there is also an ambiguity in the mindset of people, that they want it all more sustainable, more environmental friendly. On the other hand, the cars on the street are getting bigger and bigger, and the environmental footprint of the automotive industry is like hell. They didn't move for years. Yeah, and that has also something to do with the, let's say, with the perception of the customer at the end. So I have a strong feeling that we must put these kind of results really in a relationship to results of classical kind of infrastructure we would take. And there is already infrastructure in place. So adding a new one, which has a denying rate of 10%, or might it be 30%, is a brilliant result, I would say.
Brilliant result, Franziska. What do you think?
Brave.
Yeah, I wanted
agree.
to add something to the question with the society acceptance and to the IAM Hub, because the IAM Hub is a platform, but I think it comes as a result from the regulation where it says the use-based regulation, where it says in Article 18F that the member states have to get in touch with the local communities to if they want to create a use base there, and there are instruments and for the cities to engage with their citizens or with local stakeholders. So I think that the background of the IAM Hub, so that all kind of different levels really work close together, and so for the municipalities, it is really the first step to know that they have a stake in that regulation, that they have a say and they can ask their citizens. There are different instruments. We have a project dealing with the question what kind of instruments one could implement on a local level, not to make it too big an issue, but to really get a view on that. But I think that's the first step before one thinks about where do I get the information. But to know, yes, it's me, the municipality, who is in charge for that process.
Yeah, I think that's a notion of almost empowering of the municipalities, and I think the Drone Week, of course, in this edition has had a lot of focus on municipalities or cities and regions, and we have this session. So I think this is something where a lot of work has been done to make that possible, and of course the IAM Hub is also to help with that. Francesca, what's your take on this? How can the IAM Hub help? In this collaboration that you underlined as a very important element.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, now talking from the point of view of an airport managing company that is approaching the vertiport design and building a realization, I think it's important to engage local authorities at a regional but also municipality level. I think that cooperation is key. Sharing with them our plans, be sure that our plans, what we want to realize is consistent with their vision and their strategic planning for mobility and transport. Sorry. I think also it's important that, for example, airports, regions, municipality together join this kind of international task force working group, because they have the opportunity to share their needs, their vision, their concerns. So the exchange of experience and information is crucial, and I think this is a great opportunity to do this. And also I think the role of European Commission is important, because another issue, another important aspect is also related to funding and investments. That is another, in my opinion, crucial point for the success of the IAM initiative in general.
Thanks a lot. Ronald, what is your take on how the IAM Hub can add value? What kind of wishes do you have for the system that is evolving now?
So first of all, I would say that the IAM Hub gets known as a platform, right? That this is something which a lot of people can share in the public. That there is a platform where they can inform themselves about that mode of transportation, those new services, the impact, who to approach in case of questions, that the cities and communities can also inform themselves, and that it's a kind of living platform. I must say, I have looked already a little bit on the Slido questions and reading their question about bringing that air taxis for the happy fews. Exactly, that's what we need to tackle. There is a vision when we speak about drone delivery, when we speak about drone integration, use space, and all those pillars, when we say this is something which everybody needs to be able to afford. It needs to be an added value for the community. It needs to be a clear use case with, for example, medical services. But those cases needs to be shown transparently to everyone. And then it's also, this is our goal where we might not start with, right? So we need to also, to start or to have that goal achieved, we need to clearly identify that this is not under all costs, but what are the intermediate goals to start. And like Bobby did, we need to be allowed to do it so that we can overcome those barriers, that those concerns are on the one hand addressed, but also maybe just shown, oh no, that's not a concern I had in the beginning, now I think completely different. If we not start, we will not get rid over. So addressing those concerns, also addressing those concerns using the IAM Hub is a right way to do so. But then we also need to agree on what is the way further. Because in the long term, those concerns are valid, but in the intermediate term, we may not be able to address them, right? So looking into the goal of that this technology like air taxi is affordable for everyone, and looking to the study here that the people are interested to fly without a pilot, we need to work on that. We will not start with it, but we need to work on it. And that's something which we cannot just overpass and start directly scaling up. it's something we need to do together with all the participants involved, and that we need to agree on what are the intermediate goals.
Right. Thanks. What's your take on the added value of a European platform that Yvonne has introduced? From your perspective.
Yeah, very useful. I think it's a very useful tool in just getting all the stakeholders feeling that they have honest information, because it's not good enough for the company, the operator, to give the information, because obviously we're going to be biased. So I think Europe plays a useful role there. And I think the thing to get right is to make sure that it's super easy to access. Literally, it's an app. It's an everyday thing, like Flight Radar is today. For the people that like to track planes, I think it needs to be that simple for people to get answers on what's going on. And like we do that anyway, so we let our users see what's going on. If you have our app, you can see the traffic. But I think we're the operator, so it doesn't make sense for us to obviously show all the traffic. So I think it's very valuable, and it's something that when we get questions, we get a lot of questions in from people that live in the locality or from government or different stakeholders, and we try to provide the answers. So, for example, we have our own noise research that we commission from a university, and we give that to people. But it's us commissioning a report and giving the report. It's not, it's not pure. So I think I like having a proper independent entity like Europe doing all of that work, and then we'll just forward customers towards that. So it's a very useful tool for us, I think, to help with engagement. Yep.
Great, thanks a lot. So I think we've closed a little bit around on engagement and the interaction of the different actors in the system. Maybe just to keep our promise to audience questions and also the more technical one. I think we have one question here on noise before we close the panel. Yvonne, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'm happy to take the first one. So about Annex 16 regulations being sufficient, given that they allow helicopter level noise. So, good question. I would say probably, so the answer would probably no. Not only are they not sufficient, but just not adapted, simply because you wouldn't measure the noise of a drone like you or eVTOL like you measure the noise of an helicopter. So even the procedure to acquire the noise level would be different. And I hint here the question is about the noise limit. What's an acceptable noise limit? Where it's very early in the process to say what the noise limit will be for eVTOLs and drones. We're in the process of acquiring data and see what technology shows us. But yes, without spoiling too much of the outcome, I think it's fair to assume that when we have a noise limit for eVTOL and drones, it will be lower than Annex 16 limit for helicopters, because these products are simply quieter from what we see. So that's to be expected.
So I think that's very helpful, and Yvonne will be around for further technical questions in this area. It's 5:30, time to conclude. So to thank all the panelists here for this excellent engagement. I thought those were very lively discussions. I think there's 3 observations that I would like to share. One certainly is that we see that with the concrete implementation that we have now ongoing, some actually in operation, some very close, some very concrete plannings, we do learn a lot about societal